I'm really thrilled to be introducing our book here. It may be the first book that is actually integrated in-depth interviewing, and boy, some of them have been in-depth interviews, 8 hours in a few cases, with psychological testing, with most of the people have taken our Caliper profile. So we have an in-depth look at these people, and they're incredible people.
What this book is about, the book is about so many things, and there's so much we want to share with you. The first finding is that you have to define your own success. In order to succeed on your own terms, you need your own definition. The second thing we found was that they all knew their defining qualities. They knew what drove them. Inside the book, we have 19 different chapters on people who own a certain quality. It's like it's their middle name. They personify it. And the third finding we're going to tell you about in more depth is that they all seize their defining moments. Now, defining moments, we're going to talk to you about in a little bit, come at us in ways sometimes we don't recognize. Sometimes we don't recognize them until they're in the rearview mirror.
But the key here, and you'll hear a couple of different kinds of defining moments, but the key here, every one of these 50 people knew their defining moment and had the courage to grasp it.
And the fourth finding is that everybody doing this was having fun at what they were doing. They absolutely loved what they were doing. What we want to share with you are some of the qualities that drove these people. The first quality, and it's one that is fundamental to everything that Herb has written about in the Harvard Business Review several times, is resilience.
I think maybe the best example of resilience in the book, although I don't even want to say that because there are so many, but the story of Muggsy Bogues, 5'3", 14-year career in the NBA, 3 years in All-Star, 5'3", and that is persistence. That is fighting. What that is, if you take this human being, 5'3" is a major physical handicap when you play basketball.
What they're seeing is a picture of Muggsy here, Herb. It's
Now,
just unbelievable.
Magic Johnson, in Muggsy's first game, okay, they were playing the Lakers, and Magic Johnson, who was a point guard for the Lakers at 6'9", had to guard Muggsy at 5'3". And at the end of the first half, he went to his coach, Magic did, and said, I'm not guarding that blah, blah, blank, blank in the second half. Take me off the, because what he would do is he'd bend down when Magic dribbled the ball, Muggsy was closer to the ball on the ground than Magic was, and so he stole the ball from him all the time. And Magic would not play against him. So that is sort of playing to your strength, but using what theoretically might be a disability as an advantage. He did it for 14 years. That's persistence.
Absolutely. And that plays, I mean, that personifies resilience. That plays, however, whether you're in sales, whether you're in management, whether you're in customer service, that ability to deal with rejection the way Muggsy did, to know where rejection belonged. The next quality we want to share with you is competitiveness. Now, this was personified by Jeffrey Bodine, who was he's one of NASCAR's 50 best drivers of all time. Jeffrey, a lot of us have been in some sort of an accident. Jeffrey's got an accident on film that he shares with us, and you have, even in slow motion, you cannot tell how many times the truck that he's driving is hit and it flips over. This is what the truck was like. And so, talk to me about competitiveness, because 2 months after this accident, he was behind the wheel of a car. He was driving again. I said, you got something going on with death here. He said, no, I'm not afraid of dying. He said, I'm just competitive. I said, look, we've interviewed chess players who are competitive. There's something else going on here, Jeffrey. What is it? What are you afraid of? And he paused and he said, I'm afraid of being replaced. He said, if I'm out for 2 months, there's somebody else in my seat. Now that's interesting to think about when you think about competition. And he was very, very open about it. Competition is what drove him, what made him an incredible athlete. But he also talked about the downside of competition. He talked about how it ruined personal relationships. Think inside of your own offices and whatnot. The competition is supposed to be, your competitor, who you're competing against. But how many times does the competition get turned the wrong way? Where departments are competing against one another, where it's hard to get things done? Clarifying, being really clear about where competition needs to be is very, very important for a company. The next quality we want to share with you is optimism. And allow me just a minute to read something to you, because I could paraphrase it, but Janet Lasley, who many of you may know, personifies optimism in this book. What happened with Janet is that she developed a very rare form of cancer, and I can't even pronounce it. She saw herself, when she was trying to get away from the cancer, she saw herself as a fox. And she said, all I was doing was running for the next forest to keep myself from the dogs that were baying at my heels. I didn't feel like I had to conquer the disease totally. I didn't have to do anything that seemed unreasonable or unrealistic. I just had to stay ahead. So I kept running, and the things opened up. One time I had a tumor that was getting out of hand, and the doctors at Sloan Kettering said, they have a new chemo they're introducing at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And it was what I needed. So I got another couple months, then another year. At this point, she says, she kept running, and she'd look back, and the fox would look back, and the dogs would be further and further away, and then the forest would be further and further away. Dealing with optimism is so, so important.
Even most alternative physicians today will tell you optimism cures illness. That people who want to fight an illness can, it's the mind-body connection. And I can tell you that every one of these people, again, Janet's a wonderful example of this, but every one of these 50 people display that core of belief that it's going to be okay, that they can make it.
Imagine surrounding yourself with a team of people who are completely optimistic. How does that change your workplace? The next quality we want to share with you is thriving on pressure.
And that, here again, as managers, as people in business, I don't think you can all hire Roger Staubach. If you could, be careful what you hire him for. But Roger Staubach was one of the greatest football players who ever lived, rated as one of the top quarterbacks in NFL history. But the reality of Roger, I'm old enough to remember his career very, very well, he was a good quarterback most of the time. I mean, better than average, okay? But I don't think would have ever been recognized as the person he is if it wasn't for one attribute. He quadrupled his talent when there was a pressure situation. Many people crumble under pressure, and not bad people, or they need control. They need to be able to handle the situation, be able to predict the situation. They don't want too many things happening to them all at once. And they're good people. But if you're looking at people, whether it's employees, managers, whoever, that distinction between just being able to function, quotes, normally in a structured way, and that hunger for the pressure, that adrenaline shot that pressure gives them, understanding that difference is sometimes a make or break in terms of if you hire or promote or whatever. A very important element that we all too often forget. And Roger is an exemplification of that, rising to that pressure situation.
Exactly. The phrase that he actually developed has become part of our vernacular now, which is the Hail Mary pass.
The Hail Mary pass. The Hail Mary pass was that we were behind, some of you know it, they were behind, I think against a very good Minnesota team,
Yep.
About 4 points behind. There was 4 seconds left to go. He faded back, threw the ball 50 yards in the air. Drew Pearson caught it and went in for a touchdown. And when he was asked, how did you do it? He said, well, I prayed to Mary, and between Mary and, I guess, Jesus and Drew Pearson, we completed the pass. And from then on, that kind of last desperation pass is now in the vernacular as a Hail Mary pass.
A phrase that can send shudders up any Minnesota Vikings fan. Integrity is a story about when we first met David Orrick in New Orleans. We had, he is the guy in the infomercials. I mean, there's no way to tease him about being a vacuum cleaner salesman. He lives it, he breathes it. He is everything you see. He just loves it. However, our respect for David Orrick went through the roof when Hurricane Katrina. Now, David, you talk about optimism and pessimism. He has his main plant in New Orleans and his factory in Mississippi, both of them hit by the same hurricane, okay? What happens with him is the next day, everybody gets together, and I would have loved to have been in the room. He told us how the meeting went, but it was, I mean, the people that are in the room, many of them had already lost their houses and whatnot. They didn't know where their employees were. The conversation wasn't about, okay, I think it's probably time to take our manufacturing overseas, because he knew what he was about. That didn't even come in. The conversation was about okay, the vice president of sales is in charge of getting generators, and the vice president of research is in charge of getting trailers, and they turned their parking lot into a trailer camp, and they got the word out that anybody who worked for them had a place to stay. They knew exactly what they were about, and the integrity that came from that made those decisions incredibly easy to do. Let me just bring it back around. If we can leave you with four things. The first is you have to have your own definition of success. The second is to have your own defining quality. Think about that. Is there a quality that we've talked about that resonates with you? That's a starting place then. Inside the book that Herb's been talking about is an assessment that you can take that'll help you identify some of your defining qualities. But it has to do with self-awareness. It has to do with making at least one of those qualities your middle name. The third is to seize your defining moment, to recognize it before it's in the rearview mirror, or to take something that might seem negative to some people and to realize that could be positive. And the fourth is to have fun at what you're doing. You got to love what you're doing to succeed.
One final thing is knowing yourself, saying this is what I am, this is what I'm not, and playing to what you are, saying the heck with what I'm not, and just focusing in on what you are, having the courage to do that, and having fun at that. That's the key. Thank you.